Welcome to our program, Pirate Ship with Dr. Viviana, taking place as a part of Southwestern University's virtual homecoming weekend. Tonight, we'll explore the beauty and challenges of relationships, no matter the stage of where they are. And joining us tonight are several members of our alumni community. They'll all help us dive a little deeper into the topics of dating, marriage, and parenthood. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Viviana Coles, class of 2003. Dr. Coles is president and lead psychotherapist at Houston Relationship Therapy. She's also president at the National Sex Therapy Institute, a sex therapy certification program for mental health professionals. Dr. Coles holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Southwestern and a master's and doctoral degrees in marriage and family therapy from Nova Southeastern University. Since graduating from Southwestern, Dr. Coles has built a thriving private practice providing relationship therapy, sex therapy, and premarital counseling. Many of us know Dr. Viviana from television. She's currently a featured marriage expert on Lifetime's hit show, Married at First Sight. When not in session or filming, Dr. Coles enjoys spending quality time with her husband and 2 children and traveling with family and friends. Dr. Viviana, we're so pleased to have you with us tonight and for you to share your expertise with the Southwestern community.
Oh, I'm so thrilled to be a part of this. I haven't been able to go to homecoming in forever. So anything having to do with alumni, I am so excited to be a part of. SU is so special to me. It was a brief part of my long educational pursuit of a journey, but it was super, super special, and it continues to be very dear to my heart. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're so excited, and we appreciate all you've done. Dr. Viviana has been a great mentor to our students in the mentoring program, and that's how we even got to learn more about what's happening in her exciting life. So, and being open to this idea for us for homecoming, it's a great way for us to engage people from all across the country, which we'll do tonight. So this will be a lot of fun. Well, what's going to happen? So Dr. Viviana is going to answer questions and engage in conversation with a few of our fellow pirates. They're each in a different stage of their lives, allowing us the opportunity to relate to their experiences, either in the past, present, or future. So first, we'd like to welcome Jeff Cookston and Robin Dutton Cookston to our call.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Well, I'll share a little bit. So on Jeff and Robin, Jeff graduated from Southwestern in 1992. He earned his PhD from the University of Texas in 2000 and has been a professor of psychology at San Francisco State University for 19 years. Robin completed her degree from Southwestern in 1995. She then attended the Hugh Downs School of Human Communication at Arizona State University and spent her career in writing and nonprofit marketing and communications. She now is at the University of San Francisco as Director of Development Communications. Robin and Jeff live in the Sunset community of San Francisco with their 3 kids, ages 17, 13, and 7. They're a 15-minute walk from beautiful Ocean Beach, where they found much entertainment and refuge over the last year. We're so excited you're here.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, well, I'm going to turn it over for you all to ask questions and engage in a great conversation.
Great, thank you.
Hi, y'all. How are you?
Good, nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. How have y'all been doing with everything about the pandemic and having 3 kids at home? I have 2, so I get it, but 3's another level.
Yeah, it's been a wild year. We have 3 kids of very different ages. So a student graduating from high school, a student leaving middle school, graduating from 8th grade this year, and then an elementary schooler who's 7 in 2nd grade. You might hear him chattering, doing his remote learning in the other room during this call. He's talking to one of his teachers. Yeah, so they're all still at home, and Jeff and I are both working remotely from home during this time.
Wow.
Yeah, anything you want to add?
And the spring was really interesting working from home. As many people, we were all just kind of reacting in that first few weeks, and then the summer was such a great relief to not have the distance learning, and while we were still doing our work. And then at the end of the summer, we bought a VW van, and the VW van became our mobile office. And so it's a Eurovan Weekender edition, and so I drive it to the beach and look at the water while I teach my classes, and there are no distractions. So I think, like a lot of folks, we found a way to adjust because our workplaces weren't available to us.
Mhm.
Amazing. So what kind of questions do you have, or are there any concerns about anything that's going on, love, all that? And if I can help, I will.
Yeah, I think just a great question that I've been thinking about is how to, as a couple who's been together for a long time, remain thoughtful and compassionate to each other when there are so many external stresses, such as the global pandemic, and how we can still be kind to each other when we have things outside of our own relationship creating stress.
Mm-hmm. So I think that one of the things that the pandemic and social isolation and all that have really called to action is an idea of either, if you don't have routines, creating routines, and if you do have routines, breaking out of them. So in all romantic relationships, I think it's so important to have a sense of spontaneity and predictability. And having that balance is super important for something that's long term. When you have 3 kids, they take care of the spontaneity, right?
As you can see, my husband just left the room to go.
Exactly. The not having that predictability, right, is oftentimes checked off. But what I will say is that I think it's very important for the romanticism to continue to be slowly nurtured. It doesn't have to be any super grand gestures that you plan and plan and plan, but on a weekly basis, I would say touching base with each other sensually or sexually, or even just romantically, verbally, at least twice during any week. And if you're having trouble carving out, because you're going to have to make the time, it's not like anybody's going to hand it over to you. If you're having trouble carving out that time, then something will have to be compromised, something will have to be lost in order to gain that time that's specifically for the purpose of intimately connecting with each other. And kids, again, are always going to need you 100% of the time. The house, if you really thought about everything that you needed to do as a homeowner or as a home manager, that will always be there. There's always a running list. The thing is, there won't be a time that you'll ever have all the time in the world that you need. Even as empty nesters, you will not have all the time in the world to do everything that you need. And a lot of times people think, oh, well, when the kids can drive, when they start, when the global pandemic magically goes away, apparently, then we'll have time back to us. No, lots of other things will seep in. Y'all seem to live kind of near the beach or near the ocean. You know that there's always space that's filled, whether it's water, air, sand, whatever. There will always be something to take over that time if you don't carve it out and hold it dear to the two of you. One of you might be better at it than the other. It's okay for you to take the lead. I'm a big fan of scheduling this alone time, scheduling this quality time. A lot of people think, oh, that takes away the spontaneity of it. Spontaneity, I do believe, is a luxury. And there's time for that. And you can maybe sometimes just go with the flow and see what happens. But if you're really trying to make sure that something happens, it's probably going to be time to schedule it. Now, what you choose to do with that special time, that can be a conversation, or you can take turns planning.
That's great. Thanks. Special time.
Yeah. And
we do special time with one of our kids.
Okay.
And so that language is good. It works for us. Yeah.
And the special time is very much about describing and reflecting what the child is doing during the play, as well as labeling praise. And so for example, if Robin brings me something at the table, rather than just saying thank you, I'll say thank you for bringing me that water. So labeling the praise is kind of counterintuitive, I think, in relationships when you've been in them for a long time, because you're shortcutting a lot of language. If I just tap her on the shoulder, she knows that that's a form of appreciation. But to say those extra words, thank you for doing this thing that you just did, gives it, I think, a little more urgency.
Well, and that's the reason that, greeting card companies do so amazing, is because you're actually putting into words thoughts and feelings that go in and out of your brain, but not often your mouth.
Yeah.
And so, I love that you're already doing this sort of intentional work with your child to show them what it takes to have a healthy relationship, because that's something that is missing, especially with parenting these days. It just seems like I see a lot of clients who had from generations past who just didn't have any sort of example. It's not that they had bad ones, they just didn't have any example, because the knowing glance, the hidden sensual touches, the not, oh, we don't want to make our kids groan in disgust as we kiss. And so they honestly thought that probably that wasn't happening at all, even though it was happening in secret or in privacy. So I love that y'all are showing them now, what if you were to happen to do that to each other?
Yeah.
If you were to give that same intentional work to each other, it might feel like an extension of, oh my gosh, we're talking like we do to our children. But it really means that you have to think about what it is that you're saying and why and what the point is. And maybe it's something that doesn't really hit the spot and you do still need to have that special time otherwise. But honestly, with 3 kids that are at home and doing all of this work, and everyone's just trying to get their priorities straight and all that, you'd be lucky to be able to get out, right? You'd be lucky to be able to have that alone time. So you might just have to make little tweaks to what you're already doing and make it, and even just saying, well, now we're going to do this and it's for us. That might go somewhere, and that might create a sense of romanticism, even though it's something that you're doing already.
Yeah, that gives me some ideas. It gives me something to think about, of like little things that could be tweaks to our week. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. It's not like every time you have quality time, you get to get away for 3 days.
Yeah.
Sometimes, honestly, it sounds so silly, but sometimes it's just about lighting candles when you do whatever it is that you're going to be doing. Or, if you happen to drink alcohol, if you have a favorite beverage of whatever, just pouring it into some special glasses. It just adds a little bit of intentionality to it. And these days, it's kind of all we can really do, because the big stuff is not on the table for most of us.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything you want to add?
Let's see. Well, I think kind of wanted to shift the conversation a little bit is, when the kids are at such different developmental levels, and we're able to meet them where they are, but sometimes they're not as able to meet each other at their developmental level. And so just curious your thoughts on nurturing sibling relationships and helping them to be as compassionate as they can be toward one another.
Yeah. Well, I know that what's helped, at least in our household, is the idea that you will have to work with people who are 20 years older or 20 years younger as adults. And that being able to be a part of a group and be productive and efficient, those are skills that we're always going to need. So it's not so much about meeting someone where they are in a certain skill level, but almost highlighting what each group member does bring, the perspective that they bring, and why it's so important to have that. I guess it really depends on your child's personality and what triggers them, but always kind of coming back to working as a group is going to be something that you're always going to be expected to do, even if you're at the top, or at the bottom of the food chain when it comes to your profession. So being able to look for the good in others, saying thank you intentionally, asking thoughtful questions, and learning how to be good with criticism and constructive criticism and tonality. I mean, the way that you speak to someone makes all the difference. So maybe using those as teachable moments and praising them when they do such a good adult job might help them to experience those times as opportunities differently than if it's just, okay, well, when we're working as a group, we each take turns doing this. and you don't want to take turns, okay, then we can't work as a group. We're all going to be alone now. We're all going to have to do our own thing, and showing them that that's probably going to make things last longer than they should, that working as a team, even if y'all were to all take different tasks for dinner, if you didn't know what the other person was working on, you might all end up with macaroni and cheese, which isn't that bad actually, but yeah, just even intentionally setting them up for these team building sort of exercises to show them it's so much better when we all communicate better, when we're all in the same room, when we work around each other, things tend to go better. Because if not, you won't eat for another 3 hours instead of 1. It doesn't take much to teach a kid like, this isn't ideal, but it might take, it's consistency, right? That's all that parenting is about, is consistency. So using the language, I tend to love team building, group work, because yes, we all have our special skills, but in the end, that's not what's going to be what makes the glue work in a team. It's really actually communication and patience, which is what all kids need to learn, and most adults use that on a daily basis. So.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Good observation.
Yeah. I like the team metaphor a lot. Yeah. That's a lot to think about. That's great.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you to Robin and Jeff for joining us.
Thank you.
I took notes as a parent of 2 boys myself, and with my husband. So we're going to be incorporating some of that into our family as well. So I'm glad you all joined us from San Francisco.
Thank you so much. It was really,
safe.
really
Thank you.
cool. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, and at this time, we're going to welcome Marisa Madrid Ortega, who's joining us from the East Coast. Marisa graduated from Southwestern in 2018 with a degree in computer science and a minor in Chinese. While at Southwestern, Marisa was a member of Alpha Xi Delta, the Coalition for Diversity and Social Justice, and the Computer Science Club. After graduating, she moved to Washington, D.C., where she currently works as a software developer for a government consulting firm. While not working, she enjoys tending to her houseplants, visiting the city's best restaurants, and roller skating. We're glad you're here, Marisa.
Hi, great. Thank you, Megan. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Hi. So nice
Hi,
to
Dr.
meet
Viviana.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Of all the amazing things you're into, the roller skating is the super exciting for me. That's so fun. It's such a great workout.
It was a quarantine hobby that I picked up. I love it. It's a great way to get outside, get some exercise, just have something fun. There's a big community in DC as well, so it's been a good way to meet people.
Awesome. Well, how are you doing otherwise?
I'm doing good. We're just kind of here, trying to get through it. I love DC, and it's been really great to be living in a big city. Even though there's a lot of stuff going on, you can generally walk places, and there's always things to be doing, even if you can't necessarily be around other people.
Yeah. Well, how may I help you? Is there anything going on that you'd like to a second opinion on?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the biggest question that a lot of me and my friends are always talking about is how do you even meet people at this point? Even before the pandemic, it was a lot of, do I get on online dating? Do I just try to meet people at a bar? How does this even work anymore?
Yeah. Well, it really just depends on what kind of relationship you're looking for. But before all that, just know, like you said, your friends are feeling that way. Everyone who's single and looking for a relationship is feeling the same way. And I think it takes a lot of guts and confidence to make that first move. Honestly, that's what I tell everyone that I work with who's dating, is that they need to build their confidence, because at this phase, the person who makes the first move is going to end up being in a place where they're able to find someone. But there's so many people who are hesitant, who are scared, especially with the global pandemic happening. You know, there's physical safety issues and as well as emotional safety issues. And those have always been around, but to the extent that now people are talking about them, it's a lot. So I do think that building up confidence and saying, you know what, if I truly do want to find a partnership, it may happen where I least expect it, or it may happen exactly where I expect it, which could be online.
Yeah.
It could be online. It could be down the hallway. It could be at the local, you know, coffee place that you can get to and walk outside. Making the first move is so important. So let's back it up. How do you get to a place where you would be willing to make the first move, willing to, you know, socially distant, make that first kind of interaction? At this point, you know, it does take a little bit of, actually a lot of gumption to go up to somebody and just talk to them and ask them a question. But I will tell you that being confident enough to be curious is the first place that you can either find somebody to be a friend, or find somebody to date, or find somebody that you can make, you know, a little impression on, and then they have a great day. But if you're not willing to open up your mouth and make that first move, it's not going to happen. Because guess what? If everybody's not willing to make the first move, hello, we're stuck. So tell me about your level of confidence when it comes to talking to somebody or approaching someone, even if it's just has nothing to do with being interested in them romantically.
Mm-hmm. I would say I'm like fairly extroverted. I definitely have never been the one who's like particularly forward in like pursuing someone. So I think there's like a little bit of confidence there. Definitely feel like I should work on that, but I'm definitely okay with like going up to someone and being like, oh, hey, like I really like your bag, or like those are some cool sneakers, things like that. But it's always the like, okay, here's this little like tidbit I'm giving you, and then like, how do I keep this conversation going?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we tend to kind of paint ourselves into a corner when we're talking to someone is if we're not doing something that we're both partaking in, right? So if we're not sharing an experience, then you're basically just talking at someone. So for instance, if you're at a coffee shop, if you're at a food place, if you're, you know, both watching the same screen, then you'd be more likely to have a conversation that continues versus a compliment, which is nice. It's a great way to start, or an observation. So for instance, if you and I are eating, you know, ramen somewhere, and I see you from across the way, and I'm trying to get your attention somehow, I'm probably going to like as I walk by or from across, be like, I'll probably say something like, "It's really good," right? Like out, right? And then that kind of gets you to say, if it is good, then you'll be like, yeah, it's really good. And or you might be like, I don't know, mine isn't good. Oh yeah, what did you get? Because mine's really good. You should try this one next time. Oh, okay. What did you get? Because I'm not going to get what you. It's like it's a bonding situation. I love to tell couples who are established or even daters, do something where you're going to bond, whether it's over a positive experience or having a negative experience. Either way, it's something that you're sharing together. So putting yourselves in situations where you're going to share an experience with someone else, whether it's outdoors in the park and you're throwing a ball around or walking a dog, as long as you're sharing an experience with someone else, a discussion can happen. You can ask questions, you can be curious. But if you don't put yourself in those situations, discussions probably aren't going to get off the ground. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, definitely. The amount of people that I know who moved to the city and they're like, I got a dog because I couldn't make any friends, is a lot. So I definitely get that, like, you know, you have to put yourself out there and be in those kind of group situations to build that like bonding experience.
And even virtual situations and experiences at this point have become very legit. As long as you have a shared and common interest, discussions are flowing. you know, and don't ever undercut the value of a smile. You know, smiling at someone, you know, when I'm listening to people, oftentimes I smile, but that's natural, but most people don't. They'll just be like this.
Yeah.
It's a big difference, right? It doesn't give you a sense of a personality when you've got like kind of that RBF going on. But I think everyone should be smiling. I think it draws people to you. They want to be a part of that positive energy. I think you've got that down, no problem. So I think you'll be fine. But for anyone else, make sure that you're smiling often. Now, when it comes to taking that next step and kind of going one-on-one and having a one-on-one experience or planning for a future date, these days, you do have to consider, okay, have you gotten your vaccine? Are you willing to COVID test before? You know, I am. And if you're not, well, then know that you need to keep it virtual.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that you can really truly enjoy yourself and feel good about having those natural, like physical touches that might happen when you're interested in someone, when you don't know if you're possibly exposing them or getting exposed to COVID. Now, I tend to have those conversations when it comes to STIs and STDs, but now people are even more likely to be willing to have the conversation about COVID, even though I wish they would have them as openly about sexual infections. But nowadays you can do both. Have you been tested? What does that mean? COVID tested. What about the others? You know? I mean, it could be a really great little additional question to ask, and it helps you to be able to choose your physical situations a lot better and just keep yourself safe. So yeah, it's important to do that. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, most definitely. So say you've like gotten past like the meeting points and you know, you've like met in person and things like that. Like, how do you approach conversations about exclusivity? A lot of people I know don't really use the terms like boyfriend, girlfriend anymore. Like that feels kind of outdated. This is my partner. This is the person I'm exclusively dating. How do you even approach those conversations?
Well, I think that's one of those things that if you're interested in knowing whether somebody else is dating other people, first of all, I would go into it assuming that they are.
Yeah.
Don't assume that they're not. Okay. I think a lot of people do the opposite. They just assume, well, if I'm not dating somebody else, then I don't think they're dating somebody else. Who would do that? Well, lots of people do. Lots of people date. I think the average is like 8 or 9 people, you know, at once.
Yeah.
It's like a full-time job. So definitely don't assume that they're not dating other people. And because of that, there are some physical safety concerns that you are absolutely allowed to ask. Whether you feel comfortable asking or not, you have every right to say, like, hey, I need to know, are you dating other people? And if so, are you getting physical with them? Again, do it with a smile and it goes a long way. The other thing is, if your relationship has gotten to a place where you think sorry, there's really loud stuff. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's not. I'm just going to keep talking just in case you can't hear it. I think that it's going to be very important that you discuss why you would want to take it to an exclusive place. Because if you can say, hey, I'd really like for us to be exclusive because I think it would really help us to X, Y, and Z, or it would make me feel A, B, C, that helps to create a conversation about it versus it just being a closed question, a closed-ended question, which is, are you dating anybody else? That's a yes or no question. Whereas if you say, hey, I'd like to know if you're dating other people because I just want to date you, and I think it would be great to have that focus just be on us so that we can really put some energy into what we're building here. That kind of gets a conversation going. If you want to ask, ask. If you feel the need to ask, ask, because if not, you're putting a wall up anyway. There's a wall there. Having questions, especially important questions like, hey, what's going on with us. Lingering for too long can create self-doubt. And when you create self-doubt, it creates insecurity, and insecurity starts to really erode at whatever it is that you're building. Again, confidence goes such a long way, and there are certain things that you cannot be confident without certain information, like, are you actually dating someone else? The other thing is, a lot of people try to get that information without asking, and they go lurking and become detectives online. You'll probably find what you're looking for, but it won't have happened in a communicative, relational sort of way. And that's a milestone in a relationship. Having that relationship status conversation is a milestone. And if you do it on your own, it doesn't really set up for future milestones very well.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Very important to like have those relationship milestones. And the way that they've just kind of like changed over the years, like like I don't know, like 10 years ago it was like, oh, you're Facebook official, and like that's the most important thing. Now I feel like most of my friends are like, oh, I posted him on Instagram, so like that means it's like official. And so just kind of the way that like those conversations happen, I think it's definitely like important. And it's good to know that like it shouldn't just be like, are we exclusive? It's more like, I would like to be exclusive because of this reasons. And that way it's not just like a simple question, but the conversation is there.
Yeah. And again, it's taking that first step, because your partner might not be the kind of person who's like, I want to be exclusive because of whatever. So if you bring it up, then they can say, oh my gosh, okay, yeah, me too. Or, you know what, right now, probably not, because I'm also, talking to other people or whatever. I'm not in a place to do that right now. Or I promised myself I would date, openly for 3 months before making any sort of decisions. Some people create little structure for them. Maybe they've always jumped into an exclusive and they're serial monogamous, and they're trying to do something differently. So it doesn't always mean, if they don't agree with being exclusive with you, that it's a bad thing. It could actually be them doing the work on themselves in order to be better in relationships. There's a lot of work that I do around people just making assumptions. Mm-hmm. And if we could actually really bet on the assumptions that we make, then relationships wouldn't happen, because we'd just be alone. We'd be fine. Like, we'd be okay because we have all the information. But if you really want to be in a relationship, you have to be willing to ask those questions and be curious.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you, Marisa, for joining us.
Thank you.
Good to see you since graduation. I can't believe that was a couple of years ago now. Next, we'd like to invite David Stahl and Hans Menable to the conversation. David is a 1984 graduate with a BFA in theater from Southwestern. He went on to receive his MFA in theater at the University of Texas at Austin and has worked as an actor since. Also, he taught acting at UT, Southwestern, and Texas State University. David has been a member and deacon at University Baptist Church in Austin for 30 years. Hans graduated from Southwestern in 1984 with a BA in psychology. He's become a CPA and has worked for the IRS since 1987. Hans has been a member of University Baptist Church for 30 years, where he's served as deacon, also serving as chair of the Board of Deacons 2 different terms over the years. He's a member of the Austin Playhouse Acting Company, where he served as chair of the board several times there too. David and Hans were married in 1983 when they were students at Southwestern and have celebrated 38 years of marriage. They live in Georgetown and have an adopted son, Raul. Welcome, David and Hans. We're so pleased you're here today.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Hi. Oh my goodness. Y'all have been together for so long. I feel like you might have a lot of tips that would be helpful for everyone.
Well, we've had an odd situation in that as a gay couple, when we first met, people, gay men were not getting married, but we immediately coupled up, and So chose that as our way. And then many years later, after, many years together, we adopted a son. And so who has just recently moved out. And so we're kind of, we were a couple for a really long time, and then we had a son, and then now we're couple, empty nesters now. So we're kind of reevaluating where we are. And, for the last 10 years, we've, focused on him. So.
Wow. So you're empty nesters, and we were talking about that a little bit earlier. And you do get some of your mental energy back, but it's probably replaced by something else. And maybe there's a little bit of anxiety that kind of creeps in as your child is out of the house and you're no longer able to really keep tabs on a daily basis.
Yeah, the question in that way is, how do we recapture being a couple instead of focusing all our energy on parenting? Again, we came to parenting pretty late in the relationship, and everything changed. When we were at Southwestern and we had our union ceremony, because it wasn't called marriage for gay people at that time until it became legal. But it caused, all of a sudden, everybody on campus knew, because there were only about 1,000 students. And that was an interesting experience for the two of us. And it launched us into our relationship for the rest of our lives. It was very positive at Southwestern. And then I guess, well, I've already kind of asked it. How do we recapture being a couple, without this total focus?
I think it's always wonderful to have a conversation about what your future goals are. What are your fears now? What is your driving force in life? How would you like to use the energy that you have, emotional, psychological, physical, financial? How would you like to do that going forward? Because a lot of things change when you become parents. A lot of things change when they leave the house. A lot of things change when you retire. I mean, there's so many different things that are milestones that can be amazing, but we don't often talk about how it affects our views on life and what living is about. And so now that you've been given the opportunity to use some of that energy towards yourself again, what are you going to work on? What's going to be a passion now? And how can you continue to hold all of the things that you hold dear close? But if there's something that you want to let go of now, that would be something important to let your partner know. And if there's something that you think you want to bring into your lives, that would also be very important to let your partner know. So yeah, just kind of rehashing, opening up, who are we now? Where is my identity now? I think this happens and is encouraged by mental health professionals to moms, but your dads and you are empty nesters. There's a lot of identity stuff that happens with that. Just like if you were to switch into a consultation role in your profession, if you were to be an entrepreneur and open up a new business, all of these things are tied up with identity. So sharing about identity, and if you're having some sort of crisis with that, definitely sharing it with your partner. Or if you feel even more, I guess, official and legitimized in your identity now, that would be important to know. But yeah, just checking in with each other about who you want to be and what you want to spend your time doing now that there are maybe some choices that have opened up and some choices that have gone away.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So our son has recently moved out, and so we're still kind of also grappling with that. And as you say, kind of, what is he doing? What is he up to? What's
Yeah, that hasn't quite gone away.
I don't think it ever goes away. I'm checking in with my parents who are on vacation, so I get it.
Yeah.
And so we're grappling with, you know, what are the boundaries? How do we set boundaries? And you know, we're still providing some financial support. Austin's an expensive area, so you know, we're helping with, you know, rent and, you know, car payments and things like that. So you know, how do we negotiate things now? And you know, how often should he be allowed to visit here, and how often should we visit him and contact him, and you know, vice versa.
Yeah, we don't want to seem clingy, you know, with our son Raul. And we have to kind of back down with each other. It's so bizarre, this experience, because we were a couple for I don't know how many years before we adopted. And everything really changed between the two of us. So again, it's that, well,
just kind of negotiate, but you know what? Yeah, what are the new negotiating parts? How do you negotiate these kind of changes? Because, I mean, yeah.
Well, let's go back to setting some sort of boundaries. I think, yes, we can call it boundaries, but it also might be helpful as a family to just say, like, what's the framework we're working within? Because he might have some clear ideas of what he would like and what he doesn't like. Y'all might too. So maybe just starting with sharing what those things are. Let's start with, and you might have the pendulum swing all the way to, well, he's not living here, but does that mean he can't be here all day and then just live, you know, sleep somewhere else at night?
yeah.
Are we expecting every Wednesday to hold it, you know, as our family dinner night? Do we, like, you might want to just go with what would be too much? What's too much communication? And then work your way back from there. And then remember, he probably has some ideas too that might help you to figure out where to make some stopping points. And then remember, let's try it for a month. Maybe this works for a family forever. Maybe it doesn't. Chances are you're going to have to tweak it a bit, you know, but having that conversation between the two of you first, because this is your marriage and you want to make sure that you're protecting your marriage, even if it's protecting it from your own child. I think it's very important that you have that conversation first before then saying, hey, this is what we're thinking. What do you think, Raul? What are your expectations about how we spend time together and how we communicate? The other thing is absolutely taking advantage of all the different ways that we can communicate and stay in contact with each other. Because a phone call every day, expected every day at, you know, 9 a.m. on the way to work or after coffee or whatever, that can become burdensome. But checking in with a text, sending a funny picture, doing a little FaceTime, you know, that doesn't feel as burdensome as holding to some, you know, hardly anybody can keep an appointment every single day at 9 a.m. That might feel a little bit limiting. So I just think that making sure that you're using all the different ways that we can contact, and then of course, creating a framework that you can try out. You're not committing really to anything because you can always change it up and should change it up.
Yeah, the things that currently, well, they have for many years, where we find together our, I don't know if solace is the right word, or joy with each other, is our involvement in theater and the theater community in Austin. And we are in, and then also in our church, we find solace in that. And of course, with the pandemic, all of that, you know, we have like Zoom parties in the theater and Zoom meetings at church. And so we still have contact, but it's not the same. And where was I going to go with this?
So you've got fun, you have fun things and fun events that you're looking forward to as a couple.
Yeah.
And you both share those?
Yes. And that's, I mean, again, that's, a big part of our relationship has been focused on us attending a church together and us being, we taught Sunday school there together for a number of years, and, the parts of the things that we do there together. And then we're both members of this acting company at Austin Playhouse in Austin. And so, David is really the star, and I'm sort of the lesser star, which is fine. But we enjoy those things together as well as separately. So, but that's outside of Raul. That's kind of where we were before, and I probably will be returning there. Although pandemic-wise, it's really different right now. So,
well, I do think it's important for the two of you, just for the long-term fun and, like you said, joy of your relationship, to find something that is outside of all of the joint ventures that you have, because that creates a little bit of mystery, and it also gives you something to talk about. If you were there to witness everything that happened to each other, dinner table isn't very fun, right? So that's also part of the work that I think a lot of people don't really consider the work, but it is keeping things engaging and exciting and different, and creating opportunities to have things that you don't know about, and not in a secret way, but in an individualistic way, in an autonomous way. Especially when you have such established roles, pun intended, it's nice to shake things up a bit. And where one person is the lead and the other is, playing second fiddle.
Well, another thing about us, from people that are our friends, and there are many, we are only known as Hans and David. Hans and David, Hans and David. It's almost as if we're one person, and that's our name, like Cher. It's just Hans and David.
Sunny and Cher.
But anyway,
and actually, I'm putting out a book in May, and part of it, and it's all about intimacy, but part of it is a chapter on how having individualism isn't something that has to move you apart, that bringing something to the table and not being seen as a unit, right? Because we're always talking about having a joint facade and a joint unit sort of look to everyone else, but having your own thing going, it's good for your soul, it's good for your brain, but it's also good for other people to be able to experience relationships and friendships with you outside of the other person without it feeling like, I have this thing that I want to invite Hans to, but I know I would have to invite both of them. And I really wanted to get some one-on-one time because, sometimes there are people who suck the air out of the room and you can't really get to know them if you're with like 2 or 3 people. You're like, I need you one-on-one. And again, those are all things that you can then bring back to the relationship. But it doesn't always have to be a bad thing, and it certainly doesn't have to be a threat to your marriage.
That's very, very interesting. I mean, during this pandemic, of course, we're spending a lot of time together. I'm working at home full time, as the other couple, and David is not teaching right now. He's not doing any acting right now because everything's closed down, and so we're, here all the time together. So we need to figure out some ways where
and I know it might sound not as exciting, but even if it means taking a walk and listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook and then bringing that back to the dinner table. It doesn't it doesn't have to be anything super grand or scary to expose yourself to others or anything like that. You can do some fun things on your own and then just bring it back to the dinner table. And then actually maybe not say, hey, you should read this too, or you should watch this show too. It's, no, I'm going to watch this show, and then I'm going to share some interesting things that I learned from it. Maybe you can do the same. It's little simple things that I think we're always trying to create a sense of unity, and you should always, you should share interests and you should spend all this quality time together. During this global pandemic time, I have had to do more of helping people not to spend time together because it's causing so many problems.
Well, that sounds wonderful. The ideas you are giving us. So,
And also not to take it personally when you want to spend time apart. I think that's another thing, is that you may feel like you're being rebuffed or replaced, or that your partner's moving away from you. Just because they're literally or physically moving away from you, that doesn't mean that they're emotionally moving away from you. And you have to prove that by bringing what you've learned from the outside into your home.
Yeah, I like this. Finding something new, and this last thing you were saying is something that I think we should focus on, because it's not that we fight, but it's just that feeling of I've got to have my own space, and so that's talking about.
Just a little tidbit for anybody who's listening and who is really stuck indoors all day long is, you don't get to claim one space in the house. You're going to have to share it. You're going to have to rotate. You get one side of the couch one day, you get another one, but nobody gets to just themselves and say, I get the office for the entire pandemic, or I get this side of the couch, or I get the dining table. It's going to have to be something where you rotate, and you might want to get methodical about it, or every day you just say, we're in a different spot. But yeah, it's funny the things that have come up in my practice.
Well,
thank you all so much for sharing.
Thank you, David and Hans, for joining us, and for Dr. Viviana for sharing your insight with everyone. Do you have any parting thoughts for all of our pirates out there?
Yeah, I think that it's so important that we remember where we came from, and we remember the ideals and the open thinking that stems from having an education at Southwestern University, and that small town feel that really helps to promote you feeling like you're a big deal. And building confidence is so important. Just remembering those ideals and then taking them out into the world, but always remembering where we came from and our roots. I think it's so important, and it really helps to keep everyone grounded. So thank you so much for having me, and good luck to everyone in their love lives and relationships. And whenever you need help, you can certainly reach out, and I'd love to be there for you.
Thank you so much, Viviana, for offering that. And we do have your contact information in your profile on the Homecoming website, so people can.
Sure. Yeah, and just anytime you want to find anything having to do with events, or even just looking up things that I've been a part of, I'm online, Dr. Viviana. Just spell it out, Dr. Viviana, and it'll hopefully show up.
That's great. Well, that's great. Well, thanks for everyone in attendance. We hope you've enjoyed tonight's program, learned a lot, reflected probably even more, and we hope to see everyone at the rest of the weekend's events. Happy homecoming. Thank you.